platform. Members in the different regions can network and also to encourage intra-Africa trade as well. JCCI was established in 1890. We're part of the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris. So we have access to 14,000 chambers globally. We host 2 to 3 international events a month where we invite the ambassador and the commissioner, where they will give an overview of the bilateral trade opportunities and where our members can engage in the international platform. JCCI also hosts several developmental projects in partnership with international stakeholders, the German government. We work very closely with the British High Commission, and also we've worked with Trias Belgium. So we have strong partnerships with various international stakeholders, and we value our partnership with Trade Forward Southern Africa as well. JCCI is also part of the Association of South African Chambers, the ASEC movement, where all the major chambers, the Durban, Cape Town, Nelson Mandela, Bordekai, Pietermaritzburg chambers, we've actually join this association where collectively we can address key issues like electricity, water, infrastructure. We will engage the services of an expert, and then we will lobby on behalf of our members to government as well. And collectively, we also access the different international markets as well. And now going forward, I'd just like to introduce you to Advocate Rob Moody, the lead Access to Information and Trade Promotion. Rob Moody will give you more information on the Trade Forward Southern Africa. Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks very much, Bernadette. I'm just going to share my screen quickly with everyone as well, if I can. There we go. It makes it a little bit easier to explain what we're doing to make it real for everyone. Good morning, Rob Moody here. I'm the lead on access to information and trade promotion for Trade Forward Southern Africa. I'm based here in Johannesburg in the center of Sandton. The Trade Forward Southern Africa program, a lot of you will know us by now. We've been very active in trying to get our information and reach out to everybody across the whole region. Just quickly, it's funded by the government of the United Kingdom. And the program covers the 6 countries in the Southern African Customs Union, but also Mozambique, being countries with which the United Kingdom signed an economic partnership agreement when the United Kingdom left the European Union. And this was to replace the existing economic partnership agreement covering trade that was in place with the European Union. And of course, when the UK left the European Union, a substitute had to be put in place. So the countries we cover are Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, Mozambique, and South Africa. The intent behind the program is to help companies to overcome the non-tariff barriers to trade. And the first of them is understanding where information is available, where you can get the right information, and tools to help companies that are export ready to identify markets, to choose which markets are the best to target. And we built in a range of tools from the International Trade Center, as well as tools from the European Union and the United Kingdom, where once you've decided a country that you're going to target in that region, you can actually identify exactly what the customs duties are, the taxes, and then all the various compliance rules and regulations and standards that have to be met. And there are tools also to help you identify potential business partners across the world. This program is funded by the UK, but it is targeting job creation in the region. It's not specifically aimed at building supply chains with the UK. It's for help companies identify markets across the world and to be able to get the rules, regulations, etc., that they need to comply with in those markets. And to that end, I just like to make it real for people as opposed to me just telling you about it. You probably, those of you who've been on our webinars before will have seen our website, and the tools are built in right on the front, on the home page. We're just having a little hiccup with our export readiness checker at the moment. It needs a bit of technical rejigging at the back because it's highly interactive. And this is all aimed at helping companies step by step through the export process. The first thing is that, you know, you need to check that your company and your products and your setup are geared for export. If you're not ready, it can be a very costly exercise to venture into international markets if you are not ready. But once you have checked that you are ready, there are tools here that help you identify markets. We're not going to go into that in detail now. We do cover that in other webinars that we do, and we have videos up on the site that you can use to guide you through how to use the tools. There's also tools there to help you identify at either your export clearance point or the import clearance point into your foreign market, what are your competitors' CIF or FOB pricing, so that you can see, are you in the ballpark or competitive in the market or not? There are tools there to help you find buyers, and then, as I say, crucially, tools to help you identify what the customs duty standards and so on are that you have to comply with. And everybody will see at the top of the page of our website, it's available in Portuguese for our companies and business support organizations in Mozambique. And particularly here, something we're very proud of, we've piloted a School of Export training with Future Females organization last year. There are 7 modules in that, and because of how well it has gone down, we are contracting to build another 21 modules into that over the period of this year. And just for everybody's information, you can go into that link, you can create a user account there, you can self-register any time of the day or night, and you can take the training at your own leisure, 24/7, 365, and you can come back to things. And just quickly to see, there's the course library, the first 7 modules are there, and they've been used and very, very well received. And you can see as you click through, you click on that and it will open up a particular, the various modules. And the modules are very, very interactive. You can go forward and back in the module. There are video clips you can see.
Delivery that carries the minimum cost.
I'm not going to play through it all, but that's just to give you a quick feel of what is in the School of Export, as well as the service offerings of Trade Forward Southern Africa. Just to put it in a nutshell, there's 3 primary areas that or pillars that we have to our work. The first is, I won't say it's the first, the one I'm responsible for is access to information and trade promotion, and that relies very heavily on the tools and this hub to provide tools and information. We have a digest. You'll see there that there's a news section, and we have a digest that goes out usually after most of our webinars, giving updates on crucial changes, important information. And in our resources page, those of you who will be, who know our website already, if you go to the resources page, we have somewhere in the region of about 12 key export guides going up very shortly. We've been preparing them over the last couple of months, covering a wide range of stuff on how to register as an exporter in each of the countries that are in the region, as well as covering issues like rules of origin, proof of origin, how that fits in under the various trade agreements, particularly the Economic Partnership Agreement, and then also covering Incoterms. And just on Incoterms, a lot of the stuff that is available in the resources in quick guides is also being built into the School of Export for more in-depth training. So the next element of our work, it's one thing for companies to have this information. The rules are there. You can go into the British government website that we link through to. You can go into the EU website. There's a lot of it is also built into the International Trade Center tools. you can get the information. These are the rules and regulations and standards you have to comply with. Now, that's one thing. It's another step for a company to be able to actually comply with the multitude of rules and regulations that you face. So in our value chain work, we've identified a number of key product categories relative to each country's capability, and with the top preponderance of the representation of women. And I won't go into the value chain work in too much detail, but the intent there is to try to dip into some of these areas where companies need more help through their business support organizations to be able to get compliance in place. And the third key element of our work is a strong focus on getting more women involved in trade. And that's not purely a feel-good factor. The reality is women, and I'll be careful how I say this, but in general, women make better marketers than men do. That's just a reality, that women tend to be more empathetic and relationship-driven than men are. And that is a key element of building international relations for export. So we have a strong focus on women in trade as well. So I think with that, I will close down my little introduction to Trade Forward Southern Africa. Please do, I encourage everybody to go to our website and really make use of these tools that are there. Rob Canavo has used some of them today for his presentation, and he will underscore exactly how valuable these tools are. I've been using them for about 20 years now. It surprises me that fewer people and more people don't know about them, but anybody who sees them and sees how you can use them to identify markets and all the regulatory compliance issues, they say, holy cow, this can save us weeks of work and literally thousands of dollars in time and effort, let alone hiring consultants to do this kind of research for you. You can self-research, get this information in a matter of a morning or an afternoon, as opposed to weeks and high cost. So we're very pleased to have Rob Canavo, who will show you some of the opportunities that have been identified for trade with the UK in particular. And Cleo and Gulube, our value chain lead, will come on and give you some of the further detail about opportunities identified in the value chain work. Thank you very much, Bernadette.
Thank you, Rob, for that presentation. As we can see, Trade Forward Southern Africa, the tools and the services and support they offer really assist businesses to make the right decision, and also with the export training and the knowledge you need to also make the right decision on the suitable market of entry as well. So these tools that's offered can really assist your business to expand and also be sustainable in the export arena as well. And also the UK and the SACU and Mozambique region, they have a very strong partnership, and that trade and economic relations is continuing to grow. So our topic today is the UK market and opportunities for the region. And I'd like to hand over to Rob Canavo, a former South African trade diplomat with overseas assignments in Angola, Italy, and the UK, where Rob served as Trade Commissioner in London up until the end of 2010. He then served as a special advisor to the UK TI team in South Africa, while supporting key initiatives between the UK and South Africa. In this role, Rob established the first ever BEE, Black Economic Empowerment bilateral partnership with the National Empowerment Fund, NEF, in South Africa, and the first ever BPED fund, amongst numerous others. Rob is also registered with the FSCA, Financial Services Conduct Authority in South Africa, and is an authorized and regulated FSP. Rob advises and supports multinationals and SMEs to gain access to key opportunities across all sectors of Southern Africa, including defense, oil, and gas, mining, finance, energy, and assisting companies to navigate the understanding of BEE legislation. He continues to promote bilateral initiatives to boost winning partnerships across Southern Africa. Rob has also recently been appointed as Honorary Counsel for South Africa to the UK. So we can see with all Rob's expertise and knowledge, we're actually in the best hands to cover all the opportunities in the UK. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks, Bernadette, and thanks so much for this opportunity. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again, and thank you for taking the time to join us. I think, as Rob outlined, this program is really fantastic. We thought today that it would be good to focus on the UK market in this Trade Power Day series, not because it's, as Rob said, it's not only the market of focus for which is supported by the program, but I thought, you know, the UK market is a natural market for South Africa and Southern Africa, and should be so, which is why I put together a couple of slides. And but before I kick into it, I'll just like to spend a couple of minutes on you know, some slides in the introduction. So what I've got is I've put together 9 slides on each country, highlighting, you know, where they are in terms of the UK and what are the potential for growth. We're probably going to have to whiz through that because I've only got 20 minutes. But I'd just like to kick off on the introduction and just say, you know, we've been talking about a great reset. And we've obviously seen the issue around supply chains globally. There's been a lot of talk about a factory Southern Africa. Can SACU integrate into global value chains? Can we be a supplier to international markets and multinationals across the world? So my answer, in short, is an absolute yes. And the first slide that I'd like to show is just some of the headlines that have come out in the last sort of 12 to 14 months that show the reality of what is actually happening around the world. You can see here that for the last 40, 50 years, China has been the default factory of the world. Most of the multinationals have got a presence there. But what's been happening over the last 12, 18 months with supply chains that have been disrupted, and we've seen that from car manufacturers to pharmaceuticals, is that companies are starting to realize that they need to be close to their supply. So you can see here, these are just some of the headlines, and people are shocked when they actually read them, but this is actually happening. I mean, even the German firms, a quarter, are planning to leave China. You can see here, India makes a move on companies leaving China, offers land twice the size of Luxembourg. So this is real, and this is an opportunity. The Indian Prime Minister last year invited the top 30 multinationals to India on a private visit and basically gave them free land and all the rest of it, incentivizing them to come across to the UK. So this just shows us that these opportunities from a regional perspective are actually real. And it's something that we should definitely be thinking of, you know. The next slide that is also part of my introduction, and probably the key message that I'd like to bring across today, and sorry, I'm not sure why it's not moving. And probably the key message that I'd like to bring across today, and maybe the slide that I was going to use as my conclusion, but I thought to include it now, is an image of what's actually happening in the market. So you can see, for those of you who don't know, Tesco is the UK's biggest supermarket chain, similar to a ShopRite in South Africa. And cashew nuts, as you can see, being sold here in a 60-gram tub that are being sold in basically across the UK. But what's interesting to see here is that this is a product of Vietnam. Now, the UK imports 40% of the UK imports of cashew nuts are coming from Vietnam. The irony, or whichever way you want to look at it, is that Mozambique, as we know, is a major producer of cashew nuts, and 35% of Mozambique's cashew nuts are exported to Vietnam. So shouldn't we be, as exporters, why shouldn't the Mozambican exporters be targeting, you know, the UK market directly? So some will say, well, we're too far removed. It just maybe doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I always like to sort of put things into context in all the work that I've done over the years. And just from a context perspective, I can tell you Vietnam is 6,230 miles distance from the UK. South Africa is 5,891 miles, and Mozambique is 5,598. So distance is not really a factor. So at the moment, and I'd just like to spend a few minutes on this cashew nuts, because I think this is the key message that we're trying to get across to the audience. The key message is that in this instance, for instance, the cashew nut price that I just checked this morning is just under $6,000 a ton. So that equates to $6 a kilo. Now, according to the latest Tesco price, this is a 60-gram tub, and it's selling for £1. £1 equates to $1.36, which in a kilo terms is $22.66. So what we have is a situation here where we're exporting the cashew nuts in probably raw shell form at $6 a kilo, and they're actually selling at $22.66. So what we're doing is there's a $16.66 value that we're leaving on the table, and that we could be adding locally. And this is what I want us to think about, and this is the key message that I actually want to get across, and I think what the program is trying to get across to the business support organizations in the region is that these are opportunities. There is a market that is out there for products, and companies should be maybe looking at where do they play in the value chain. So what I also want to mention is that, and sorry, I just put my video off because just from a streaming perspective, what I also wanted to mention is that for our Mozambican listeners, you shouldn't feel too bad. I can tell you, for instance, South Africa, as you know, is a major producer of macadamias. Our exports represent 29% of the world exports, and we rank first in the world. You'll be surprised to hear, and I wish I could see your faces and expression on this, that less than 1% of South African macadamia exports actually make it to the UK. More than 10%, just over 10% of South African exports go to Vietnam. So we're very much in the same position, in terms of the nuts situation. But I'm pleased to say that TFSA, and Cleo will be discussing this later, nuts has been identified as one of the value-added sectors. So there's a lot of support that is being given for the sector. For some of you that may know, you'll see that nuts continually comes up as one of the products that we should be targeting. So cocoa beans, for instance, 70% of the world's cocoa beans come out of Africa, come out of Nigeria, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ghana. 70%. There's no reason why we, as SACU-M, shouldn't be producing 70% of the world's cashew nuts or 70% of the world's macadamias. And this is the key message that I was trying to get across today, is that basically through the TFSA website, you've got an excellent platform, as Rob mentioned, in terms of training and modules. As Rob mentioned, there's 7 modules with 21 extra. There's also toolkits available which basically help you and show you which markets and where the opportunities lie. Of course, we all know this is a very academic exercise, and for exporters and producers, basically one needs to get in front of a buyer and show them your product, and that's where the business is done. I also know, for instance, and I've got people that I know that are macadamia producers and farmers, and for them, when they see that money on the tree, the first thing that they want to do is harvest and get their money as soon as possible. So they don't really think further than this. They're not really worried about adding value. But the key message to get out there is to use the TFSA network and the program. And if you've got an opportunity to add value on something like this, is to basically come together and make use of it. The other opportunity is really that we want to try and create a network amongst each other. So where we can share this kind of information, and in turn, this information gets passed on to our exporters in the region. So we're not leaving that $16.66 on the table, but we're adding as much value as we can locally in our markets where we know it's much needed. So that brings me to the second part of the presentation, which is then looking at each market and how we actually fit into the UK perspective. So what I've done is I've utilized the tools that are on the TFSA website. And you can see at a snapshot in terms of SACU and the UK, we really play a small part. We supply less than 1.2% of UK total imports. Always I like to put things into context, and I mean, considering we are 6 countries, we should ideally be targeting at least 2.5%, 3% of UK imports. That is doable with these kind of interventions, but I think we also need to be realistic. I mean, so the presentation today is basically going to look at which sectors and which areas from a UK perspective we can add value. I think realistically, you know, if we just look at it overall, you know, gold will come up for South Africa, but I mean, you and I, and probably most of us that are listening here, we can't really have much say in that space. Gold goes directly to bullion banks in the same way that Mozambican exporters can't have any say on what goes out of the aluminium plant in Mosul. And, you know, in the same way that Botswana, for instance, exports its diamonds on that policy. So we need to see where we can play. And I mean, basically what TFSA has done is that they've identified a number of sectors where value can be added and, you know, there is support being given. So I'll start with Botswana. You can see the majority of Botswana's exports go to India, Belgium, and the UAE. These are all the polishing houses and trading houses in Antwerp. The UK up until 2016 was a bigger player. So a lot of the diamonds used to go directly to the UK. Obviously, Botswana is the big exporter in this case, but I mean, this has now changed, and now these are figures of 2020. You can see that the UK is less than 1% of total exports from Botswana. Again, looking at the total, the different breakdown of products, you can see that almost 90% is made up of diamonds. So where is, looking at the export potential, so what this does, this tool is available on the TFSA website. You can use it, you can play with it. I mean, ideally what we should have done today would have been good is to do it on an interactive basis, but I think it would have taken up, you know, just too much bandwidth. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to basically cut and paste, you know, 3 slides showing the export potential for each country relative to the UK, and then 3 slides which show the most promising product diversification opportunities, which basically identify which new products should countries consider to expand into. So you can see here for Botswana and the UK, diamonds, the tree map, I've basically limited it to 20. You can basically expand it to 100 products. You can also expand it to and filter the results by sectors or products. So I've just kept it on 20 just so that it's visible and clear. The tree map shows you the size of the potential of the market. So for instance, as we said, diamonds is the biggest potential. We're only exporting from a realistic perspective. This is for the UK, 2%. You can see the actual exports is $120,000. The export potential is 5.6 million. And we've got an untapped potential of 5.5. So this shows you the biggest opportunity in terms of market potential. The size of the square is proportional to obviously each product. Ignition wiring sector is the next one, and so on and so on. Then what we can do as well, then what I've done is I've basically looked at these through what they call these radial charts. It's pretty much an interpretation of the previous tree map, but put into a radial chart. The size of again, I've ranked the top 20 only. You can rank the top 50, and you can do Botswana's products with export potential to the world or to China or to the USA. And like I said, we've just focusing on the UK today. So again, so what we saw from the previous slide, again, it's showing it here in a radial form with the size of the market and its potential. So this just gives you an overview of where we are. This is based on demand, and then this is based on supply. The next 3 slides, which I did for each country, are based on where should Botswana be looking at for the UK and which products should Botswana diversify into. So again, the number 1 product here is greasy shorn, not carded wool, not carded or combed. And you can see here, the 3rd product, again, is ground nuts. So the potential for ground nuts from Botswana to the UK is the UK imports 138.1 million. So we can see that nuts keeps on coming up as one of the areas that we could be playing a major role in. And as I said, it's clear we'll be sharing more information on some of the support that's available to you for those that are looking at getting more into the sector. So just to run through then, This is based on the demand. And you can see grapes comes up here. And this is based again on supply. Wattle extract, which come up second, is basically a substance used to tan leather, which Botswana is exporting and the UK is requiring. So this just gives you a quick overview, basically by sector. Again, which for those of you who have used the tool, once you start using it, I mean, it's really, like I said, it's a desktop exercise, but it just gives you an overview of the market and where the real opportunities are based on actual facts of what's going into the market. If we look at Eswatini, the UK is basically the 5th biggest export market, just accounting for just over 2.5% of exports. If we break it down, these are the products that are being exported. These are global exports. And you can see which are the ones that are really the market. Looking at the tree map, we look at raw cane sugar. That's an area which is basically the biggest potential for export to the UK. As I mentioned, raw cane sugar, I mean, sugar in particular has got a whole lot of issues around LDCs and special agreements and special dispensations and special markets that are in favor. So it's maybe an area that one can't, it's not always easy to get involved in. But another one that's the second biggest is women's trousers and shorts of cotton. So you can see here the actual exports is 261,000 and the untapped potential is 456,000. Looking at it from on the radial chart, again, raw cane sugar comes up again, and you can basically just see how it shows you this in a radial format. Again, I've just done the top 20, and I've just looked at the UK market. So I'm just going to run through these. I think this is a duplicate. And this slide is based on demand. Then if we look at which products should Eswatini be diversifying for export to the UK, the number one product that comes up is jerseys and similar of man-made fibers. So what is the UK import? 1.3 billion. And this is an area that maybe Eswatini should be looking at targeting the UK market in more in the textile space. So you can see the top 4 products that come up from a UK Eswatini perspective are very much in the textile space. So the colors, I should have mentioned that the colors represent the sectors. So apparel, you can see footwear is orange, and this is how it's displayed. Again, from a diversification point of view, this is from a demand perspective, and this is from a supply perspective. But the tool basically takes into account the country's capabilities and its relative proximity to new products and demand, as well as relative market access conditions. So they analyze, I think, 40,000 products across 200 markets. It's updated every 6 months. And Rob and I used to use it all the time. And I mean, I know that it's a fantastic tool to use. So for those of you that are looking at access to this kind of information, I mean, what I've done here, I mean, you can do it. Just takes a bit of time and a bit of getting used to and a bit of playing around. But the tools are available on the TFSA website, and it's truly, as you can see, it's real factual information. Looking at Lesotho is, I mean, the UK market for Lesotho is also small, less than 1%, 709,000. The majority of exports are coming through to South Africa, Belgium, and the US. And again, most of the stuff is, Lesotho is also well integrated into global supply chains on the textile industry. So you can see that 49% of exports is in the textile space. So again, the products with the biggest potential to the UK, all in the apparel sector, and some in electronic equipment and some in machinery and agriculture. So you can see on a value perspective as well. Again, women's trousers and shorts, men's trousers, jerseys, and men's shirts. So these are the products that, based on current exports, offer the most potential for growth. Again, based on demand and supply. And then looking at where should Lesotho focus, which new product should the country consider to expand into? These are some of the things that come up: turmeric, smoked sheets of natural rubber, and then again other areas in the apparel space. So I'm not going to go through this, but it's just an idea of what you can do. I think the key message that I wanted to get across was that this information is available on the TFSA website. I mean, if we use it properly and if we share information and we work together, you know, we can have a bigger slice of a lot of these exports and have a bigger share, not only in the UK market, but in global markets. So these are other products that are also based on demand and then based on supply. If we look at Mozambique, so you saw, for instance, Mozambique, that 35% of their cashew nuts are going to Vietnam. But at this stage, South Africa is the major export market, with India followed by the UK. The biggest product that's been exported is the aluminium. So we know of the aluminium smelter in Mozambique. Obviously, you and I can't have much say in where those exports go to. So like I said, you know, these big squares, both in all markets, is really difficult to get involved in. But I mean, this is where we can get involved in, from bananas, cashews, etc. So again, you can see here, I've just basically looked at the banana potential for the UK. The export potential is 19.6 million. There's no banana exports that are going out from Mozambique to the UK. Cashew nuts, there's only a small amount of cashew nuts that are going to the UK, 458,000. The export potential is 13.7 million. So this shows you, just at a glance, you know, what is the potential based on your current exports. So it's really useful. Again, here you can see on this side, the 13th ranked product is ground nuts with an export potential of 2.7 million. There's no ground nuts that are going to Mozambique, to the UK at the moment, even though ground nuts are being exported from the UK. So this is based on demand and based on supply. And then the products that are, which Mozambique could consider diversifying into for export to the UK. Again, cocoa beans comes up as the number one. So cocoa beans, as I mentioned, 70% of the world's cocoa beans come from 4 countries. But looking at the requirements in terms of temperature, etc., they do require sort of ideal conditions. But I mean, the fact is, you know, areas like, or countries like Mozambique, I think KwaZulu-Natal, a lot of those areas actually would qualify and meet those requirements in terms of temperature variations. So cocoa beans has been identified as a new possible area for Mozambique to consider and get into. Again, pineapples, you can see here the UK imports $103 million worth of pineapples. So pineapples was ranked 4th. So these are just, this is again based on demand and based on supply. The wattle extract similar to Botswana. From a Namibia perspective, the UK makes up a small percentage of exports. Most of the Namibia's exports are going to China, South Africa, and Botswana, and Belgium. If we look at the breakdown, 45% edible fruit and nuts, wood and articles of wood. And again, this gives you the biggest breakdown of where the biggest growth potential is based on from a Namibian perspective. You can see the size of the square is proportional, as mentioned, to each product. So fish fillets and frozen fillets, export potential of 23.9 million versus current exports of 34,000. Again, grapes, wood, charcoal, etc. Let's go through. If one looks at it from a radial map, or the radial chart, you can see that the number one product is fish fillets, followed by grapes and whole fish or frozen fish as well. So this exercise can be done for each country. You can do it by product, you can break it down by sector, you can break it down by subsector. And you can do it for the UK or you can do it for the world. So you can really play around with this information, and it's amazing what comes out. So the one that I sort of found really interesting was beer made from malt. So at the actual export is only $50,000, and the export potential is 1.2 million, which is quite interesting. But if you look at the UK's imports of beer, it's $647 million. Again, this is based on demand, and then this is based on supply. So where should Namibia diversify for, and which new products should they consider to expand into the UK market? So this gives you, again, an indication of sheep cuts, in frozen, and boneless sheep cuts, and wines, which is quite interesting, of fresh grapes. So, I mean, and you can see here, I've just highlighted this one, guavas, which I thought was quite interesting. The UK imports 159.7 million of guavas, mangoes, and mangosteens. So these are just, gives you at a snapshot. You can do this for, as I said, for the top 50 products. You can do this, you can break it down by sectors. The purpose of today's session was really just to give you an overview of the tools that are available, and just to give you a quick glance of how they work and what you can actually do from them. As I mentioned, it would have been great to have done this interactively, but I think we would have used up too much bandwidth, and I don't know if it would have worked. But again, you can see this is based on demand. So wines comes up first, and then based on supply, which products we should be looking at. From a South African perspective, the UK is an important market, of course, for South Africa, 4.9, almost 5%. And you can see China is now our #1 market, as well as our #1 supplier. So almost 50% of South African exports are still made up of raw materials, despite a lot of the value adding that is taking place across different sectors, but it's still iron ore, etc. And those PGMs are still making up the bulk of South African exports. So as I mentioned earlier, the tree map indicates the products with the greatest potential. So obviously you and I assume most listeners on the call, we can't really have much influence in, for instance, gold. Or not, maybe, as we know, gold goes out to the bullion banks. Platinum, semi-manufactured, is a huge market. So we can see motor vehicles. A lot of these supply chain interventions are made by big corporates, across the world. So yeah, so maybe here you can see this is gold semi-manufactured for non-monetary purposes. So export potential 4.4 billion, actual exports 2 billion. Again, platinum semi-manufactured, motor vehicle for the transport of persons, and wines are fresh grape is also come up 6. South Africa was a leading producer. The UK is our biggest export market, and we were a leading producer of wines into the UK. We've actually dropped to 1 or 2 places in the market. So I think the wines is obviously a huge sector that still offers huge potential. And again, this is based on demand and based on supply. Then the products that South Africa should be focusing on for the UK. Again, cocoa beans has come up #1. As mentioned, in a similar fashion that Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Cameroon supply 70% of the world's cocoa, there's no reason why we as a region shouldn't be, maybe targeting sort of an extra 10% of the world's production of cocoa beans. We've got the climate and we've got the capacity to do it. I assume, looking at the statistics, there are cocoa beans that are being exported, but obviously, this would need to be expanded. But it's interesting that this is identified as the leading product for export in terms of diversification for export to the UK. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I mean, and this is just from the demand side, you can see that salmon, this is what the UK imports, 730 million. And then this is based on the supply side. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. I hope it was useful to some extent. I think the key message that I wanted to get across was in the first 3 slides that by working together, and sharing information on a regional level, we can go a lot further. We can access markets like the UK and other markets internationally. I mean, as you saw, we don't want to leave anything on the table. We desperately need jobs, and those kind of interventions, leaving $16.66 on the table when we could add at least $10-12 of that locally through packaging and various other initiatives is what we want to aim to do. So from our side, thank you very much. I hope it was of interest. Yes, and I encourage you to use the TFSA website and use the tools that are available, and a lot of the training platforms that are there to be used. Thank you. Thanks, Bernadette.
Thank you, Rob, for a very informative and comprehensive presentation as well. We can see there's several opportunities available, and the tools offered by TFSA really assist exporters to make a very informed decision on gaining a much larger market share in the global market. Thank you. Now, our next speaker, I'll be handing over to Ms. Cleopatra Nglobe, the Senior Value Chain Advisor for Trade Forward Southern Africa. Cleopatra Ngloba is a value chain development expert with about 20 years of experience in supporting the integration of SMMEs into national, regional, and global value chains. Using her passion for the development of Africa, as well as a strong background in agricultural, economics, and market systems development, she has over the years led the design and delivery of SMME development programs aimed at promoting inclusive growth in value chains. More specifically, she has been instrumental in guiding public, private sector, and civic society partnership-run programs in providing technical skills, business skills, and market access support to enhance the competitiveness of SMEs at various stages, from early startup to growth stage. Cleopatra is currently the Senior Value Chain Advisor for Trade Forward Southern Africa, TFSA, where is spearheading the Value Chain Initiative, which is aimed at accelerating export growth from selected sectors and value chains in the SACU and Mozambique region. In this regard, she is overseeing the design and implementation of interventions targeted at building the technical capacity of SMEs to overcome NTB in non-tariff barriers in export markets, which are being delivered through partnerships with business support organizations. Yeah, and thank you, Cleo. And yeah, we see as well, our next speaker also has so much expertise and experience and will be able to go speak through the export cycle with us. Thank you, Cleo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Benedict, for the introduction, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'll be taking you through the work that we are doing in the value chain initiatives for TFSA. Let me just put up the presentation.
Sorry, Rob Canava, you'll just need to take your slides down so that Cleo can put hers up, please. Super.
Okay, can everybody see my presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, we can, Cleo.
Yes,
okay, thank you. I'll get started right away. I'm cognizant of the time that we have. So briefly, I just want to take you through what we are doing as TFSA within the value chain intervention work, and how to use this to potentially pursue the UK market opportunities as presented by Rob earlier on. So we, as TFSA, we've identified 3 broad sectors, primary priority sectors that we have determined to be able to that have exhibited the potential for scaled growth in exports in the region, and where also exporters face some significant non-tariff barriers. In addition to this, we're looking at the regionality of the opportunities and constraints that exist within these particular value chains. That is, if we do something in one country, we can't be able to do it in another country, or they are shared constraints or shared visions within the different countries. You'll find that generally the environment in the region is the same. And in that regard, it means that we face the same constraints in terms of production, or in terms of accessing the markets, and also the opportunities that we face out there. So in that regard, we have been able to identify sectors that we think that they speak broadly to the entire region, to all the countries that are represented by the program, and that these sectors will enable us to support the accelerated growth of exports in the region. And the sectors are namely aquaculture, looking mostly at shellfish and tilapia. We have condiments and high specialty foods. This is an example. As an example, under this particular sector, we have sauces, teas, jams, and other processed foods. Then we have the cosmetics and natural ingredients, and the natural ingredients are those that are particularly destined for the manufacturing and production of cosmetics. Then we have the fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Then we have green technology, specifically focused on the renewable energy subsector of that sector. And finally, we have the wool and mohair sector. So in terms of these sectors, what we are doing is we are implementing interventions that are targeted at improving the readiness of businesses in meeting the regulatory requirements of the various products and the various sectors that we are targeting. And the specific support that TFSA is providing to the businesses is we are delivering training and capacity support. And when we refer to capacity support, we're talking about mentoring, coaching, and giving guidance in terms of how to meet and comply the regulatory and standards requirements that are a major non-technical barrier for most businesses to access international trade markets. And we are providing the technical resources required to ensure this. We don't do this work alone. We do the work in partnership with business support organizations in the region that are working in the particular sectors to then reach out to their members who are then the firms or the businesses that are producing the different products of the sectors that we're working in to support them in being able to address the regulatory issues. And looking at the table, you will note that we've also, due to constraints really around time, we have time and resource limitations as a program, like many other programs in general. We would wish that we can do all sectors in each country, but we have limited the sectors to at least 2 countries per sector. And then the learnings will be drawn from those countries that have been picked up to work on these particular sectors at this stage, and they can be used to be applied across the region. And this refers to the regionality that I was talking about earlier on. So these are the countries were identified per sector based on their capacities really or the potential that exists within those countries to accelerate export growth in those particular sectors. You will note that in aquaculture, we have 3: Mozambique, Namibia, and South Africa. And then we have Botswana and Eswatini in the second one. Then we have, as you will see, that's the first row. And then in the first row as well, we have provided an indication of some of the BSOs that we are working with in order to deliver these interventions. As an example, we have in Namibia, NSI, which is the National Standards Institute. In Botswana, we have the Natural Products Association of Botswana, Business Botswana. Then we have Swaziland Fair Trade in Eswatini. Other examples include the South African Electrotechnical Export Council on Green Tech, then the Lesotho National Wool and Mohair Growers Association in Lesotho. So this gives you a snapshot of the organizations that we're working with. If you are in those countries and working in these sectors and you would like to participate in the program, please feel free to reach out to our partners in the respective countries and sectors. And when it comes to the non-tariff barriers that we are addressing, really there's 4 big groups of non-tariff barriers that we are addressing. We've got the technical requirements and SPS measures, which speaks directly to rules, regulations, and standards that dictate in terms of how a product should be manufactured, packaged, labeled, and also that ensure that there is protection of people, human beings, living organisms in the importing countries in terms of safety. So as an example, under aquaculture, we have HACCP food safety standards, which also are these particular standards are contained in the other sector, condiments and high specialty foods, and in the fruits, nuts, and vegetable sector. Within the cosmetics, we have the good manufacturing processes and the product formulation regulations and the ISO regulations. And under wool and mohair, we are all supporting the compliance around responsible mohair standards. It is a new and emerging standard that's coming up in that particular market. Then we have the customs requirements aspect, where we are focused on the HS classifications, in particular relating to these 2 sectors, because the two sectors, they are focused on natural ingredients that can be used across the board in many products, in pharmaceuticals, in cosmetics, in food products. So it is important for businesses to understand how to classify these very well in order to attract the right duty, the right duties that relate to that particular product. Then we have in green tech, in the green tech sector, we have the duty exemptions support. We're helping businesses understand how to comply with the duty exemptions, which is intended to help businesses to build their competitiveness of their product in that particular sector. Then the other broad group of non-tariff barriers is trade-related investment measures. This really is under the green tech sector at this particular moment in time, where we're looking at the local content requirements in renewable energy projects. Our target is really to start with the sub-Saharan market, and also to understand within that sub-Saharan market, there may be some requirements around local content in the delivery of those projects and in bringing in the products that are used in those projects. So we are helping in that regard. And finally, it's the distance to market, which is really in quotes. It really covers the issue that, I mean, trades by nature, it talks to how suppliers are distant from their markets. And I think we've all noted that in this COVID age, the distance has even become even more great because people really don't have a chance to interact on an interpersonal basis or in a person-to-person basis. So we are assisting in terms of addressing or meeting this virtual, or making sure that we can overcome the virtual distances, and making sure that we support businesses to be able to participate in virtual trade shows. And even by way of us addressing the regulatory requirements, it's part of addressing the linguistic distances, understanding those technical terms that are involved in the regulatory issues. Other BSOs that are not necessarily sector specific, but they will touch on some of the sectors, include AWSB in Lesotho, ECDC in South Africa, SMME Network in Lesotho, and then Westgrow in South Africa. And finally, the last slide, really, it's just to circle back to the whole purpose of the meeting today, where we look at the intersections. What are the intersections between the TFSA value chain support and the UK opportunities? We have seen, Rob has presented these, and we have seen where our sectors are. And if you want to pursue these opportunities, here are the intersections. That is the end of my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Cleo, for a very comprehensive and also informative presentation as well, and how important regulatory compliance is and how it forms so much part of the export cycle, because if your products or service doesn't comply with regulations, it's definitely a barrier. You're not able to export. So thank you for that very comprehensive presentation. Thank you, Cleo. And then also any questions, could you kindly just post it in the chat box, because in light of we have the time constraints, so we will address the questions and come back to you as well. And there will also be a pop-up survey in the chat box, if you could all complete it and just send it back to us as well. And then we've now come to the end of our workshop, and JCCI, in partnership with TFSA, are planning a series of workshops, because really exports, imports, that trade is going to boost the economy, and it's going to really create employment as well. And these workshops and this interaction will really create a platform where SMEs, businesses can interact with each other and also see what opportunities are available. And if companies are not able to access the opportunity individually, maybe joint ventures, partnerships can be formed. And also during these workshops, we will really highlight the importance of the TFSA tools available that will really ease and make really make you aware of what trade opportunities are available. And we'd like to thank the guest speakers. We'd like to thank all the participants today, and we will advise you of our next workshop. And thank you so much for your participation. Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you, Bernadette, and everyone. Bye.
Bye.